Well, I'll quickly say hello. As Tracy mentioned, one of the CD Foundation investors. I'm also working for a company called Intelligent Growth Solutions, where I'm quite interested in us utilizing Ortelius in the early day of the kind of startup growth. So quite excited to see what's going on and try and contribute in any way I can. And yeah, Tracy very quickly twisted my arm. I mean, this didn't take much, if I'm being honest. But I'm going to see how things are going when I start up a new company and just see what my time is like as far as what kind of time commitment I can make. But I'm hoping to be able to maintain some involvement.
And if Owen is working, is this new company starting? It is really fascinating. They do vertical gardening, and all of their sensors is running in a Kubernetes environment. You know, I think about a vertical garden. I think about something you could put in your house, but these are like massive warehouses. It's very, very
Yeah,
fascinating.
so it's kind of industrial scale. Our first big one's going live next year for a French company. It will produce about 480 tons of produce per year. And yeah, as Tracy said, all the software side is based on Kubernetes, with the hardware side just really being a connection to that Kubernetes cluster for command and control.
Hey, Steve, could you swipe the link to the doc and put it in the chat?
Yep. If I can find chat. And
Josh is here. Hi, Josh.
Greetings, one and all. I'll go ahead and go next. So, Josh Garverick, I am a cloud solution architect for, well, Cognizant now. Was 10th Magnitude. The acquisition finally closed yesterday, so we're officially Cognizant today. Do a lot of work in the Microsoft partner world, lots of Azure. I've been basically at the same client for about 2 years now and taken them from very little Azure spend to a monthly run rate of about $1.5 million in consumption, dealing with all kinds of stuff from every PaaS component you can think of to IaaS, unfortunately, in some cases. Really looking forward to getting involved with this because I think that the premise behind having this kind of a tool is really, really important, and something that I think, I mean, I personally would have benefited from a couple of years ago when I was trying to do a digital transformation for an application at the company that I used to work for. So looking forward to it, and nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. We're glad to have you. I mean, like I said, this group I think is going to be a very interesting group for kind of a mind share. I think all of you have been in microservices in the past and are bringing a lot of experience, and that this is exactly what we need to be able to create a solution that can be used across, that can automate a lot of this, clarify the confusion and automate the reporting that we need to have that visibility. Vibhav, I see you're on. I know your camera's not on, but I see your handle there. It's on mute. Steve, Sheng.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, I'm here. So I'm sorry I didn't attend the meeting usually. So I got a little bit busy these days. Just want to keep me at the same page of the others.
Well,
No problem.
Thanks for joining.
Mm.
A little bit of background. Capital Carbon Consulting are doing some really interesting things. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you guys are up to.
Okay, sorry. So my name is Steve Zheng, and I did a lot of coaching and mentoring work based on the Agile and DevOps. Now I work with Capital Carbon Consulting. Capital Carbon Consulting is a training company to help other people want to get DevOps certification. and Capital Carbon Consulting is a partner of DevOps Institute. For myself, I am a 10 years Java developer, and I help the client to help them to get a certification, and also I help them to plan and design some microservices architecture. And so this open source, I'm very interested, and I would like to spend some time working on that.
And interesting to note that he worked for ThoughtWorks for some time, so he has a really strong background in CI and the pipeline.
Yeah, yeah. I worked for ThoughtWorks about 4 years.
Well, great. Welcome. So let me go ahead and get started here. Like I said, sign yourself in. If you don't have access to the doc, we just need to get you added to the Google groups. And the Google group is called Ortelius-dev.
And if you're not added, just put it in the chat and I'll add you as we're standing here.
So that'll get you access to the documentation. Just easier for us to manage it that way. So the two documents, this is the architecture and marketplace working group. Architecture being around the architecture of Ortelius, and the marketplace is a microservice marketplace that we're looking at providing to the world around microservices. So it may seem weird that architecture and marketplace are kind of disjointed, but the one's going to feed into the other one, and you'll see when we get into the individual documents. So here's the links. If you're in the doc, you can go over to them. I'll bring them up here, and I'm actually going to do it backwards. We're going to look at the marketplace first. And our goal, the vision that we have, is to create a marketplace. And I don't know if this is one thing that we have to kind of throw around as well, if we should call it marketplace or catalog. But right now we're going to go with marketplace. The idea behind the marketplace is to have an area somewhere we can go to find microservices, get the information about the microservice, how to use it, all the information on, where issue tracking is for it, who the owner is, all that information that you normally would need that is missing in things like the Docker registries and the Helm chart museums. These, like the Helm chart and Docker registries, they do have a place where you can search for things, but I wouldn't call it very efficient. It's a very flat structure in both these worlds. They do have some tagging that you can do to help organize, but what we're really looking at is focusing on domain-driven design patterns, how we can use that concept to pull together a hierarchy of services that people can utilize. And as part of that, when Ortelius would be involved, we can actually, when we get an update to like a Docker registry of a new service, we should be able to grab that new information that there's a new service that's been created out there. And that in turn is going to affect the downstream, who's consuming it. So users should be able to opt in and say, whenever I get a new version of this microservice out there, let's go ahead and create a new application version for myself. I may not do anything with it, but I know that it's out there and that there's a new version that I may need to work with and test. Like I said, on the kind of diving into the requirements, some of the information that I see that's missing out there, and there's probably going to be more. So if you, when you guys start reading through this, feel free to add and comment to the documents. That's why they're out on Google Docs, so everybody can contribute. But some of the things that I think that are useful is, where's the documentation? The high-level documentation to the service, how to use it, what its purpose is. Where's the source code link to find the service? So if we actually need to go in and see what the service is doing, it's always nice to be able to look at the source code. Who's the maintainer? Who's the author of it? Where are we getting issues? Where do we log issues for the service? Originally, what ends up happening is, because at the end user standpoint, we're delivering applications. So I may be delivering, the Ortelius application to a customer, and they'll log an issue against the application, but that application, when we start doing like our root cause analysis, may be a microservice that's written by somebody else that's external to us that we have to go and open an issue to. So we have to have that pathway to the source and who's maintaining it and how we can help on that front.
Hey, Steve, could you chat a little bit about, on the kind of the same vein here, the problem set that Netflix has talked to us about?
Yep. Let me get through this and I'll talk about what they're running into. And then just other things like where's the registry, API documentation, the Swagger. And then an interesting one that is kind of, I threw this out there. I'm not quite sure where, how we would implement it, because it's more on the runtime side instead of on the catalog side. But being able to find where, when I take this service out of the marketplace and I put it into my Kubernetes cluster, where's the log for it? Where's the log, the performance reporting? Where's the transaction logs? All that stuff that SREs need to look at, because that's going to link back if we have an issue. We need to link that and push it back to the author at that level. So that part's going to vary because a service is going to be consumed by thousands of people, and we need to be able to have that type of information tied to on the consuming side, but that's not necessarily on the marketplace side. And then also we always get into, and you can tell it's on the very bottom because I forgot about it, the DevSecOps area. What are the security scans? What's the vulnerabilities, CVEs, licenses that the service is using, and then potentially service levels agreements. What are those? And those may be, again, tied to like the runtime logs. If I need to have my application needs to be 24/7 with a 99.9% uptime, and I'm consuming some service that is being written out of somebody's garage and they just are messing around, it's not a good fit for what I need to do. Some of the other pieces on the cataloging on the marketplace, we've thrown out there is like how to rank them. Besides the domain-driven design and organizing it, we should be able to rank them and find out things like which ones are being consumed the most, because that'll affect service level agreements and possibly issues that are we need to address. Stability, I have popularity in twice, and ease of use and maybe uptime. How long has this been around and running? So that's kind of the high level of what we're looking at from a marketplace perspective. Now, Tracy brought up Netflix. There's another piece to this. I'm not sure where we should put it. So Netflix has this problem where they will create a microservice that's dependent upon another microservice, and they're tightly coupled. So they'll have a group of 5 or 6 microservices that need to be tightly coupled and versioned, and then that set of microservices needs to be moved around. And so if you install one, you have to install the other ones to make sure you're all in sync, or things are going to go break pretty quick. So that microservice set piece is another thing that we would need to look at for the catalog. I don't quite know how we would describe it in a catalog marketplace view, but it's definitely something that from a domain-driven design perspective, those patterns, even though microservices are supposed to be totally independent, it's not the reality, and the theoretical world do diverge there. So we have to address that. And then just some more additional information about the marketplace. We're not going to be storing the microservices themselves, just the pointers to where we find those things. And we'll need to store the immutable tags, like the image digest, to git commit, so we can get back to the single source of truth. So we're going to be, like I said, more of the aggregation of all this information as one place to go to find everything about your servers. So we'll have all these pointers, different places to handle what's going on with that microservice. And then another thing that we need to figure out is in the domain-driven design, if I write a microservice called single sign-on, and another open source project creates one called microservice called single sign-on, we need to be able to distinguish the two of them. So we have to be able to figure out name clashes, and also the opt-in ability. So if you do get a new service that's been created, that you go ahead and bump your application versions automatically as part of this. Now the concept of the marketplace catalog is it's going to span not only external services, but also internal services. So it's going to be where we can look at open source projects that are creating microservices that are external to our company that we want to consume as part of our world. What I've been working with some of the national labs out here in New Mexico, and some of the things in some of the open source projects, some of the things that are coming about is normally we would have like a let's take a time clock, world time. There's a service out there that you go hit the URL and you can go get the current time and whatever time zone that you want. So that is a service, an API service that's out there running. What we're talking about is taking that service and running it in my Kubernetes cluster. Where this comes about is in the scientific and financial arenas, where on the scientific side, we'll get like Sandia National Labs will write a service that will go process data. They'll host the data, but they don't want to pay for the Kubernetes cluster and be worried about uptime and all that stuff. So what they're doing is they're providing the service, the microservice container, to allow you to run it inside of your environment, and then they'll link back to their data store, like an S3 bucket, for example. So that's where we're seeing these universities, laboratories, financial institutions are starting to, and this is very early on, where they're going to start putting out these public services that they're going to let you run inside of your Kubernetes cluster. And then how do we notify people that there's an update? And again, we need to be able to search across not only our Ortelius installation. So this is easy if you have everybody run off of the same place all at once. But if we have like my Ortelius installation, and then we have a SaaS version, then we have one coming from Los Alamos National Lab that they've running one of theirs, that we should be able to concatenate them together, kind of like the RPM repositories for the Linux. So that's kind of the idea. So any questions about what we're trying to do?
Or additions. Most important additions.
And you'll see where this drives into the next one about architecture. Okay, so let's go ahead and read through the documentation and make any comments and stuff. Add to it. This is just the first pass. You won't hurt my feelings if you change something. You know, it's going to be one of these things that we're going to evolve. So let's go over to the architecture one. Everybody wants, forget the design, let's just write it. That's the typical developers. I can see you guys, the wheels turning. So on the architecture side, just to give you some background, so Ortelius is currently more or less a monolithic architecture. And one of the things that we need to be able to do is we need to be able to transform it to a microservice implementation. And as part of that path, we'll actually move from a monolithic to a hybrid, and eventually we'll get to a pure microservices world under Kubernetes. Today's architecture that we have, the back end part of it is all written in Java. There's some JSP out there as well, but it runs under Tomcat. The RESTful APIs are all served up as one of the servlets under the Tomcat world. The front end is, there's like I said, a couple of JSP pages, but the front end part is 99% JavaScript based on jQuery, and there's a bunch of jQuery plugins. We do have a CLI that makes calls to the backend RESTful APIs, and that's written in Python. Like on the Jenkins side, the true Jenkins plugin is a Java plugin, and then we do have a Groovy library for doing the pipelines as part of that. And then we have a deployment engine that handles incremental deployments and figures out roll forward, rollbacks, and that's written in C and C++. So that's kind of what the stack looks like. Right now when we deploy, you can download a single Docker image, and most of you have done this, where you can stand up, and that's going to include the web application, the Tomcat piece, and the deployment engine. It's all kind of like bundled into one big Docker image. I think it's like 3 gig right now because of all the other supporting programs we put in there. Then we have another Docker image for our documentation server, which we run under Hugo and Doxy. And then we create another Docker image for the CLI, which is basically just wrapping the Python PyPy package into that. We do that just to make the dependencies easy as far as that. And then when we host it on a SaaS version, we do split out these guys into different smaller images. So we have a front end image and a back end, and then we have an Nginx for routing. That's kind of the way it is today. The proposed architecture that I'm throwing out there right now, initially we want to take new functionality and start piecing it, transitioning the new functionality. Instead of going in and updating the monolith, we'll just go ahead and start writing new microservices and bring them into the front end piece. So that's where we'll actually have that hybrid world for a while. Eventually, I'd like to see us get to where the front end is also broken into smaller components, and we can plug and play at the front end level with component web components for front end design work, which we can push into microservices and reuse there. But that's way down the road as part of that. So right now, looking at, we have, as part of our Octoberfest, there's, I think, 5 or 6 reports that we need to write. And those are going to fit perfectly into new microservices because they're pretty much really standalone. There are not a lot of dependencies between one service and another service or tied to the monolith. So it'll be a nice little transition as part of that. Right now, I'm thinking, because one of the people that stepped up, Drashiti, she knows Python and basically PyFlask. So that's where I'm thinking right now is we just start with a Python-based microservice for the back end, and then the front end will still be the JavaScript and jQuery. We won't be able to break the front end right away apart just because the way it's architected. It's kind of tangled together too tightly at this point. And then when we go to run it, we'll actually create an image for the front end, an image for the back end, and then we'll do one per microservice to throw some Istio routing in there at that level. Now the on-prem install, this one, I don't know how we should address it. If we should have, right now people can run just a Docker container, they can get up and going. They don't have to worry about Kubernetes or anything like that. So the on-prem world is where we're going to have to think about how we should ship something easy to use to get people up and going right away. And then the thought process, as far as like a dev test prod world, I'd like to move away from that and build up like a qa.ortelius.io. And whenever we hit that website, that we're going to get routed over to the new microservices that are being changed, plus the existing ones for production. And then we can roll forward to the production, which would be console.ortelius.io. And we'll either use Ortelius or Deploy Hub to deploy Ortelius to this Kubernetes cluster that's running out there. I was trying to figure out, I was thinking about this last night, if we can actually have Ortelius deploy to Ortelius while it's all running in the same cluster. So deploy back to itself. I'm not sure if that's going to work because we may kill the pod that's actually doing the deployment. So we may have to break out and just have Deploy Hub do it as part of that. So that's kind of the idea that I have. I think one of the other languages that we could look at would be Golang for one of these. I think what I really like to do is to get at the most 3 languages out there, just so people can have a reference point. But also I don't want to get into too obscure of languages that we have nobody to support it if it breaks at that level. So right now, the initial ones I was thinking in Python, and maybe we can throw in a Golang one as well to get started there. So just thoughts on this, and you'll see, because we're talking about this microservice architecture, how it's going to affect our marketplace. So if we look at the requirements that we have, you know, finding all these links, doing all that stuff, these are going to be microservice calls at that level as well. Being able to, you know, look at multiple domains and multiple installations, that's all going to be microservice related as part of that process. So you can see where the marketplace, we'll build out the marketplace based on our architecture that we decide here. So any comments, questions?
Yeah, I think that we need to have some discussion. I think the good place to start would be on the language. Does anybody have any strong feelings about what languages we should sort of standardize on, or if we need to?
Steve, I have a question. For the Ortelius today's architecture, what can you give me some example for the CLI Python 3? What we use Python 3 on?
So this is, I'll show you. So there is a repository out here. This guy.
Okay.
So this guy is the basically the CLI, and it has a bunch of different actions. If you want to deploy something, approve it, move it, update information about a component, assign a component version to an application version, deal with key value pairs for configuration management, import and export domains. So this is the Python script for the CLI, and then it is leveraging a Python library of RESTful API calls, basically. So this is the client side of the CLI. So like there's the login, if we're going to deploy an application, those type of things. So this is all the CLI, the RESTful API calls that are being made. So this is all in Python to do all this work.
Okay. Okay. I'll check that.
And that is this part right here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've everything in this, is in Python 3. With Sasha's help, we were able to get the containers up to the latest version of Fedora, which has dropped the Python 2.7, so everything's Python 3. Through a couple kinks in that process, but he figured it out. So we're all good on Python 3.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And another suggestion is about the on-prem thing. So my suggestion is, how about we build some automation scripts on AWS or and on Azure. So that means if people want to set up an on-prem environment, they just run the script and everything will be done on AWS. So we gave them two kinds of version. And another one, I get a comment of Ayasha that is also a good point. So 3 version we provide. What do you think?
Would we use something like Terraform to stand something like that up?
Yes, like AWS Frontier script or something like that.
Okay.
Well, for the on-prem, are you assuming that it would be just a smaller singleton version of something? It wouldn't be like an on-prem Kubernetes cluster or anything?
Well, that's the way we ship it today.
Okay.
It's just a very big image that you volume mount the database, and it has the Postgres database engine in it, Tomcat, the deployment engine, are all kind of smashed together into that single image. So the command line to run it is just a single command line with a volume mount. So it's really quick and easy for people to get up and running to kick the tires. But for a more of a production world, you want to put it into Kubernetes.
Okay.
And I think there's
Yeah.
probably something really important there as far as the different tiers of on-prem. Because someone who's just looking to explore it and have a play around it, the barrier of AWS and the potential costs of that, even if it's fairly minimal, is probably worth avoiding versus an actual on-prem production deployment. So we've probably got those two different tiers, and then the SaaS solution as well, which has slightly different solutions to them.
Yeah, so we have like the, I'll call it kick the tires version. And then we have more like a production.
Yeah, I think if you're using Kubernetes in production, then we are sticking with Dockers, then we should use Dockers in on-prem as well, because and I think Docker Compose is a good way to have something up and running very quickly on a single machine, and it will keep it consistent. Our containers will remain consistent with production.
Yeah, so on the when we like on the SaaS version, and it's really a bad, I should really just say hosted version, because we have a Unisys actually runs the Deploy Hub SaaS version in their environment instead of using our GKE environment. So you can take the SaaS architecture and you can run it on your own cloud, and that's what Unisys did for that. So basically, this is SaaS equals Kubernetes, wherever it is. You know, it doesn't matter if it's on on-prem. You know, it could be their own. You know, on OpenShift, or it could be on their AWS install. But that's kind of the idea. And then when we get into these two versions, then we have to deal with where the database is, because the database, when we bring it up as just a single Docker image, we're just doing a volume mount to the Postgres database, where these guys actually are using a separate container for running the database itself. So Postgres like when we run Deploy Hub on GKE, we have Postgres as a separate container, and a PG bouncer as a entry point to do the transaction, the database connection load balancing at that level. So, and as part of it, we can kind of like what I'm saying here is, and Josh helped stand part of this up right now, is getting Ortelius up and running on Azure. And that's my goal for this week, is to take what we have today, the monolith part, and so these two pieces here, actually, if I go back up to the top here, I'll take these pieces here and I'll push them over to Azure, so we have a place that we can get some data in there. People can start testing, doing those pieces as part of that, and then we can start transitioning that into adding in Istio and adding in the different services. So some of the things that we'll need here in the short term is getting Istio installed, working with some basic service mesh routing at that level. But back to Tracy's question, does anybody object to starting with Python? Or is there, does everybody, what languages does everybody know?
Yeah, I think that's the question to ask. What's everybody's preferences?
Mark Peters, what's your favorite language?
I'm a bad person for that one.
You're a bad person.
Well, we love the dog and the flying saucer. That was pretty cute.
You're an Ada guy?
Yeah, I'm working through Python, right? Pascal, I'm good at Pascal.
Pascal. Sasha, which language is for you?
Whatever you guys are cool with, I'm fine with. I'll hack with anything.
All right.
But I mean, Python's fine. Python's good. That's what I know. That I know a little bit of it.
Okay.
So according to GitHub Universe, Python's the most popular.
After Java, it goes Java, then Python, and then JavaScript, or somewhere around there. Python's in the top 3. No, I'm sorry. It goes JavaScript, Python, then Java. It used to be JavaScript, Java, and then Python. It switched.
I haven't really seen it since Golang started to become popular. It may be kind of coming up the ranks. I spoke to someone yesterday who said they were a Python person, and then they started using Golang and really liked it. So
the other Mark.
We're starting to see a lot more Golang, especially if you're looking at like operator development and things like that. But I mean, with the microservices approach, we want to just use Python and every once in a while do something a little different for a use case. I mean, we could probably do that too if we wanted to.
Yeah, because one of the things I'd like to be able to do is, it's kind of like a secondary motivation is to, because most people don't know how to write microservices and what they look like and get something bigger than a hello world, you know, so where we can actually give examples and let people go and this is a Golang microservice example for a real application. I think that will give us a lot of benefits down the road. Owen.
Hey. So to be honest, day to day, I'm mainly using Golang nowadays, but I do see a lot of Golang and Python in use. So I think both are pretty valid. And a lot of teams I've worked with over the last few years, even if they're using something like Golang or even if they're using something like Java, they still have some Python code in there for a variety of reasons. So I think it's a good common denominator to start with, and then potentially Golang, or even later down the line, if we're looking at examples, I'm seeing quite a few teams using .NET Core as well. So once we're a bit more stabilized, being able to bring a few working examples of other languages like that, I think will be really powerful. Yeah.
I noticed our hipster store example came out of Google that has I've seen a couple of .NET Core services in there, so it's an interesting world to explore. How about you, Steve? Are you tied to Java or?
Basically, I'm a Java guy, but Python is good. I also did a little bit Python code, so I think we can start with Python. And also one question, Python 2, Python 2.7 and after Python 3, they are a little bit different. So what do you prefer, on 3 or 2?
3, 3.8, I believe 3. Is the latest.
Yeah, now it's 3.8.6.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I prefer to use because it's a lot of everybody's finally moving up, and they skipped over some of the earlier versions of 3. So that one, the 3.8.6, seems to be a good stable version that is available now. Right.
Also, I have another question about the front end. So backend seems no problem is very popular Python or Java. Front end, are we only use JavaScript and jQuery?
Right now, yes. Just because the way the front end was architected, it basically is, it's not the best design. It came out of some developers I had in the UK, and they were not front end developers, so it's kind of a mess over on the front end side. So we'll need to break that apart. There's no like framework underneath it, like Vue or React or anything like that. So it's pure pure JavaScript. Some, like I said, some JSP, and mostly around jQuery plugins. So we'll have to see where we can start splitting apart the front end and figure out how we can maybe like these reports right now, instead of embedding the reports into the existing UI, that we create another page for the reports that we link to at that level. So that may be an option to, and that would be a whole new front end that we'd stand up from scratch, you know, like using React or probably React, something like that. What I'd really like to do is, like, on the front end is really focus on, if we're going to go somewhere new, is web-based components. So the concept behind web-based components is, I'm trying to remember the name of the project. Oh, Polymer. Polymer out of Google is where one of the ideas. But basically, you put your div in there, and you tag your div with a with basically a widget name, and then when you go to fetch, the front end makes a call to the back end and says, I need you to fill in this div. The back end actually sends HTML code in to expand and replace into that div. And it has to do with the DOM and the shadow DOM, is how it does the dynamic updates as part of that process. So what this allows us to do is, I don't know if we might bring up Deploy Hub real quick. So if you think about like a calendar widget, or you'll see here in Deploy Hub, because I'm doing a screen recording, it's running slow. So if we go into like this guy here, each one of these boxes would be its own web-based component. And so when we lay out the page, we would just have our 7 divs here, and the back end would provide us the HTML to plop into place as part of that. Then you have a CSS to style it that's unique for each website. But that's look up web-based components along with the Polymer project, and you'll get an idea of what I'm thinking of on that front. There is a way to hook in like Vue and Polymer together as part of that, and this is where we would have. Now the nice things about it is, when we look at, if we go to a pure microservices world, like on the details page here, this details box, if this was being served up, just this one box is being served up by a microservice, we can have a QA version of it that may add in our GitHub owner as another detail. And because of Istio, we can route the QA testers to the new version, and they'll bring up the new box with the new field on it, and everybody else that's production would get routed through Istio to the old version of that service. So it allows us to really mix and match. Basically, it makes your web page plug and play type of scenario. But I've diverged. This is way down the road as part of that, but it's something to think about from an architecture perspective.
Okay, so I'll touch the Polymer. You mean is this one? I type it.
That has the samples around it. Let me see. think there's, yeah. So it's based more off of, it does have some more of a Node.js feel to it. But, and there's a whole data binding piece and stuff like that. But this is one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
And if we go to the, I'll put this in the in our document.
Okay.
But it's based on these different, material web components is the other piece of it. And the interesting part about this, when you look at like these web-based components, Google spent tons of time trying to figure out how something should be spaced. You know, that like this tag here, how many pixels away should the icon be from the edge of the box? They've spent a shitload of time on these components as part of that. But material design is where I think down the future is going to be for front ends. But the language behind it is going to be JavaScript.
Yes. Okay.
And you can plug it into like Vue and React and some of those frameworks to make it work.
Yeah.
All right. So anybody else have any comments on a programming language?
For what it's worth, I'm a C# guy for quite some time, have been for quite some time, .NET and .NET Core. So when we get to the point where we look at .NET Core for anything, if we do, I'm happy to help out there. Python's fine with me though.
Okay.
C# is, we do have C code in the backend engine.
Which I'd like to get rid of, but not now.
Yeah, right. I've used C and C++ in Anger a few times, so.
Yeah, I think it'll take us a while to get rid of that backend engine because there are people who use it for managing database updates. And it does a better job than a script of doing the rollbacks and backouts between for database updates built into and I have a suspicion that as people move to a poly database format, that the database will be more of an issue and needs to be included in the configuration. So we'll see how that goes, getting rid of our engine.
Yeah, and right now, I did not put in anything about us changing the database up drastically at this point. It may make sense down the road to do some database transitions at that point to make things easier for the microservices in the front end. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. The person I was talking to yesterday, he has a really small environment. He was talking about having trouble with, he'd like to be able to track for each microservice what their inputs and outputs were. And I told him that I thought Istio and Kiali would do that, or he said Swagger doesn't solve it for him.
Yeah.
So there may be something else, and because we have been asked about producing information on a service-to-service dependency, which we can do. It's just it's just some queries. We have to, find all the applications that I think they share. That's one way we can do it. But service-to-service dependencies is an area that we should be thinking about, I think, sooner than later. Because we do application to service, but we're not trying to do service to service. And how to solve that problem is a different story.
Okay, I think that is what I wanted to cover. So you'll see out on, since we're in October now, you'll see that we created a bunch of issues out here, and they're going to be tagged with Hacktoberfest. So the report ones are these down here as part of it. And there's also a landing page now for the Hacktoberfest. Where did you put it, Tracy? It was off the...
It's on the website.
I know.
Was I supposed to check something in? And I didn't.
No, you just didn't put a link on the website.
Oh, it should be.
Under
It should be
events.
under events. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe I didn't. I should be under events though. If you go to the events page, there's a Hacktoberfest.
So just what we're looking at, and these are the repos and the issues and stuff that we're going to get started with the microservices and Python. So just let me know. Go ahead and get, if you don't have access to the repository, or if you can't assign yourself to an issue that you want to work on, some of these are pretty general. So there'll be multiple pieces that need to come into play on this. So if we have more than one person assigned to it, that's no problem. Again, let me know if you're having problems with getting access to any of the repositories. Need to and Priyajat can help you out. They're going to be doing the project management side of things. So they're the go-to people as well. If you need to get access to anything, find out you have a dependency upon somebody else, those type of things. We're early on, so we still have to build out a lot of this into finer grain detail. But we wanted to get out into the Hacktoberfest world just to get some publicity and get going. And Mark did get did everybody see the new logo?
Well, I submitted one anyway. We're gonna have to vote on it, but it's pretty cute.
I think it went in outreach. This one of our ideas.
We're thinking alien. I think that
I
the
like that logo.
I think it's adorable. I think it's really adorable. And you know, if we have
see,
the alien
yeah.
could have a lot of personalities, just like the Jenkins Butler.
Yeah, a cool pair of high tops would look great with that on the side.
Exactly. We could have an alien surfer. We could have,
Yeah, it's so you can do anything with it.
yeah, that's what I thought too. I think
So
it's
keep throwing your ideas out. Like that's documentation. We have some documentation updates, the artwork, integrations, just general stuff. So wherever you can fit in, please sign up.
I don't know who came up with the idea of the alien and the dog together, but I think it's brilliant. Because everybody loves aliens and dogs. So.
Well, we ran over a little bit today. Thank you, everybody. We had a little bit of a slow start. Don't forget about the Discord.
Continue the conversation in Discord. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we have to get resolved. So think about it and can update us in Discord.
All right, everybody, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.
Later.